Example, find dy by dx for the following functions. dy by dx is the same as y prime. So for part A, y equals sine x plus cosine x, y prime or the dy by dx is the derivative with respect to x of sine x plus the derivative with respect to x of cosine x. The derivative of the sine x with respect to x is cosine x, and the derivative of the cosine x with respect to x is negative sine x, or we can rewrite it as cosine x minus sine x. Part B, y equals x squared plus e to the x times cosecant x. To find y prime, we find the derivative of the x squared, which is 2x, and the derivative of e to the x times cosecant x, which is in the product form. Then we're going to apply the product rule for the expression e to the x times cosecant x. Let u be e to the x and the v be cosecant x. So the u prime is e to the x. The v prime is negative because the cosecant x begins with the letter c. So negative cosecant x times cotangent x. By the product rule, which is u v prime plus u prime times v. Therefore, the derivative y prime is 2x plus the u, which is e to the x, times the v prime, which is negative cosecant x cotangent x, plus the u prime, or e to the x, multiplied by v, or the cosecant x. And this is the derivative of the y. Part C, y equals 1 minus sine x divided by 1 plus sine x. We see this as a quotient, so we're going to apply the quotient rule to find the derivative. Let u be 1 minus sine x, the v be 1 plus the sine x. So the u prime is the derivative of 1 is 0, derivative of negative sine x is negative cosine x. The v prime is the derivative of the 1, which is 0, plus the derivative of the sine x, which is cosine x. Y prime, using the quotient rule, is v u prime minus u v prime over v squared. The v is 1 plus sine x multiplied by u prime, which is negative cosine x, minus the u, or the quantity 1 minus sine x multiplied by v prime, which is cosine x, all divided by the v squared, or the quantity 1 plus the sine x squared. And next, we are going to simplify the numerator. We see the cosine x, we use it as a common factor, cosine x. The negative sign remain in the group here, but we also see the negative sign, so we can take the negative sign out together with the cosine x as a common factor. Therefore, the first group is 1 plus sine x. The next group is become plus sine of 1 minus sine x. Since we already factor negative and cosine out, denominator is 1 plus the sine x power 2. Simplify the numerator. In the parentheses, we have 1 plus sine x plus 1 minus sine x, all divided by 1 plus sine x quantity squared. Sine x minus sine x reduce or cancel. 1 plus 1 becomes 2. Now we have y prime as negative 2 times cosine x divided by 1 plus sine x to the second power. Part D, we have y equals the secant x times the tangent x. We see this as a product. So let u be the secant x and the tangent as a v. The u prime or the derivative of the secant x is secant x tangent x. The v prime is the derivative of the tangent x, which is secant square x. Apply the product rule. U times v prime plus u prime times v. The u is the secant x. The v prime is the secant squared of x plus the u prime or secant x tangent x multiplied by the v, which is the tangent x. Simplifying, we look at the common factor. In this problem, we have secant x as a common factor. And then we have the secant square x inside of the parentheses plus the tangent square x.